That is not all. Beijing is shooting itself in the foot in more ways than one. The latest incident happened in Australia. Australia used to be one of China's favorite countries. Now it is China's favorite punching bag. What happened? The Australian Prime Minister made a demand. Scott Morrison called for an international investigation into the origins of the coronavirus. It made China angry. So much so that China issued a threat to Australia. The Chinese ambassador asked the citizens of his country to boycott Australian beef, wine and universities. He even asked them to stop visiting Australia. This is a full-blown diplomatic dispute now. On Monday, China went a step further. The Chinese ambassador had a phone conversation with a top government official in Australia, the Secretary of Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. The exchange reportedly was not pleasant. The Australian protested China's boycott threat. How do we know all this? Because China told us. China revealed the specifics of the entire conversation in a press statement. China violated some unspoken diplomatic rules here. China not only made a phone conversation public, it also issued a statement that mocked the Australian secretary. Sample this. The statement describes the demand for a probe as a political maneuver. China says Australia was quote-unquote crying up wine and selling vinegar. In diplomacy, backroom conversations are rarely released to the media, but Australia-China ties are on the verge of a total breakdown. A local media outlet says this leak conversation is equal to lobbing a small hand grenade. It only gets worse from here. Australia issued a response. It expressed regret over the fact that China breached protocol and promised to quote-unquote maintain the highest standards of professionalism. A subtle jibe at the Chinese embassy. I don't think they get subtle though. The Chinese diplomats in Australia are in no mood to let this go. They issued a counter statement worse than the first one. It says Australian officials leaked the details of the first call. The statement makes it sound like a silly fight between two kids, but it isn't. Let me read out a quote. The embassy for China doesn't play petty tricks. This is not our tradition, but if others do, we will have to reciprocate. Diplomacy be damned. This is now a knife fight. Even the Chinese state media has jumped in. Hu Shijian, the editor of the Global Times, wrote this on Weibo. Australia is always there making trouble. It is a bit like chewing gum stuck on the sole of China's shoes. Sometimes you have to find a stone to rub it off. Yes, the Chinese just labelled Australia chewing gum stuck on a shoe. Hu Shijian put out another post later defending this obnoxious statement. So why is China jumping all over Australia now? There's only one reason one can think of. Beijing wants to do everything it can to undermine Australia's demand for an international investigation, and the Chinese are using all the tools in their playbook to discredit the Australian government. But Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister of Australia, is not backing down.
Australia will continue to, of course, pursue what is a very reasonable and sensible course of action. This is a virus that has taken more than 200,000 lives across the world. It has shut down the global economy. The implications and impacts of this are extraordinary. Now, it would seem entirely reasonable and sensible that the world would want to have an independent assessment of how this all occurred so we can learn the lessons and prevent it from happening again.
China says the demands for an investigation are destined to fail. But Australia is quietly working behind the scenes to build international support to make China pay. Expect them to raise it during the WHO's annual meeting, the World Health Assembly, next month.